listening to the Becoming More Me podcast with me, Theresa Lear Levine. You're already enough. But if you're anything like me, you thrive when you're stretching and developing yourself, creating more of the person you feel called to be. This podcast is here to inspire and support you. Let's release the negative, reinforce the positive, and elevate our vibe together as we tap into our limitless potential to transform and grow. Hello, and welcome to episode 52, the 1-year anniversary episode of Becoming More Me. Oh, guys, this is exciting for me. This is really exciting. And I am coming into this episode with the same energy and the same never ready, so I begin anyway, kind of philosophy as I did with episode 1. And I thought about it. I was like, oh, do I plan out the episode and have some specific topics? What am I going to do? How am I going to make it amazing? And it came to me, it didn't start from that place. It didn't start from a place of like, let's plan it all out and have something totally polished. It came from a place of, here I am, not exactly sure what the assignment is here, but I'm here for it and I'm going to get started. And I think if I deviate from that too much, I lose what makes this show kind of magical. And that is that I wing it and I go with where my energy takes me. And I came in here right now because my energy is amazing and I really feel high vibe, high frequency, and in a really good place. And I also didn't want to get dolled up. So if you're watching the video, you have got my, I brushed my hair, but it's not really doing anything special. I'm just wearing the same t-shirt I worked out in this morning. And this is me. And this is becoming more me. And for me to step away from that or try to polish it up too much defeats the entire purpose, don't you think? So anyway, we've been doing this for a year together. And I just want to, first of all, say thank you from the bottom of my heart for every one of you that listens each week. It's funny with podcasts. I'm still learning a ton. I'm still honestly quite the newbie, even with 52 episodes under my belt. More than that, we record in advance, but there's so much to learn. And with podcasts, it's interesting because you don't ever really get to know what a podcaster's audience size is unless they tell you. And I really think there's a lot of inaccuracy in those numbers sometimes too, depending on how people listen and access and everything else. But I got to say, like when I first started and would get like the updates from like one of my platforms, you've had 5 downloads or whatever. And I mean, even that when I started out was like, oh my gosh, there's 5 people out there that want to hear what I have to say when even I don't know what I want to say yet. It was a great boost for me. So thank you if you were one of those first 5 people. And then it just kept growing and growing and growing. And I am always so thankful. If you have a moment and you've been listening to the show, please leave a review. And I will have information in the show notes at this point that tells you how you can do that. Because I know it took me until I was a few months into podcasting to realize how to do it. And I was like, there's all these shows that I listen to, all these shows that I'm a guest on, all of these amazing people out there providing amazing content. And you know what really helps other people find that content and believe that there's value in it? Seeing 5-star reviews. So I actually, it's part of my daily to-do list. You guys know how I am with my to-do list. I don't live and die by them anymore, but I do use a list because it does help my ADHD brain stay on task, know where to focus. It is like a checkbox item on my to-do list each day to leave at least one podcast review somewhere where I have found value. And I just think that that is a great way to give to others. And also it's something that I know I would appreciate when others do it for me. So if you have a moment, please leave a review. I would love to hear from you and to see what you have to say on the platform of Becoming More Me. So yeah, it was a year ago. I pulled out this microphone, same one I'm using today, the one that had been sitting in the corner of my room in not one, but two different houses, just kind of staring at me going, what are you going to say into me, lady? What am I here for? And finally I got up the courage to do it, and the episode was taped several weeks in advance of when I originally aired it, which was June 7th, 2021. And it was short. It was a 12-minute episode. If you guys, want to, you can go back and listen to it. I, like most things, kind of cringe at initial episodes, at initial guest appearances. We're always evolving. It's like, oh, I do it so much better now, or I would say it differently, or I would express it differently. But we have to just do, and put things out there and grow. And I think when we can do that in a public way with a podcast or whatever, and we can grow from that, that's just, there's so much growth that happens through that. And I've been really grateful for all of the growth that this platform and having a podcast has allowed me to experience in this past year. It's really helped me dial in on my purpose, my values, my calling, the people that I want to serve in my business as a practitioner, the ways that I want to create for my business. This has been a great form of inspiration and an awesome way to channel my creativity. And I often say it when I guest on other people's shows. I've probably said it here too, but probably in a different way because evolving. But podcasting is my favorite content creation plan. I love that I can sit down, I can create a show, and then, I'm blessed to have a team that helps me. And I can literally hand off my Zoom recording and they take care of making it into so many amazing things, from videos and reels to blogs and email content and so very much. But all I have to do is sit down this one time and pour my heart out and share my inspiration. And then they do such amazing things with it. And, there was a time when I first started back with just videos that I would make for like YouTube and stuff, doing a very similar thing. And I would do a lot of that. And I made my own content for years, but I make my own content still. It's just that I don't have to actually put it together. But for anybody, whether you're, a one-woman show out there, you can do it on your own. I did it on my own for years. Or if you have a virtual assistant or are looking to hire one, this is such a cool content creation plan because it's easy. It's easy. And it can feed all the platforms in different ways for long periods of time. And in a lot of cases, it's also evergreen and reusable content. I have not played around as much with that just because with a weekly podcast still in production, I have weekly stuff being created. So I very rarely have to dig into the vaults of stuff that's old and say, let's repurpose that because I don't have anything. But totally doable. Content for ages, guys. I could stop podcasting and just reuse stuff for a long time if I wanted to. But I love this, and I love that you love it and that you show up for it, that you download it, that you listen to it, and that I get, great email requests for different things. And I love it, guys. I do. So thank you. And I'm just I'm scanning through my podcasting platform, which is on Buzzsprout. If any of you are looking for a good podcasting platform, I do like Buzzsprout, and I will put my link for it in the show notes. Also, if you're looking for a good place to host, use my link and check it out. But gosh, we've talked about so many things, and we've had so many amazing guests in the last year. So I'm just going to kind of walk down memory lane a little bit and see what's up. I went from a 12-minute episode to episode 2 was almost 17 minutes. And I really talked about how EFT became a calling for me a bit. And even that story and my ability to tell it has evolved so much more in the last year. I shared an appearance that I made on the Mindset Evolution Summit. We talked about fueling dreams in changing seasons of our life. And that was right before episodes 4, 5, and 6 was a 3-part series all about unblocking your energy to unlock success in your business. And there was a lot of really amazing stuff shared in those episodes. And listen to all 3 if you're going to listen to one of them. They do go together. I talked about how I like to nurture my early mornings. I talked about lessons learned from family vacations. I've done that a few times. It seems whenever I get that concentrated time away from my family, my consciousness gets to soak things up in different ways other than the day to day. And I love it. We talked about mentorship. We've talked about how coaches need coaches and practitioners need practitioners, and we all need support as we're evolving and becoming more of who we want to be in this world, and how important all of that is, will always be, honestly. We talked about work from home, back to school, overwhelm. It's totally a thing. There will probably be another episode of it this year when we all go back to school. Now, for me right now, today is a big day. Today that I am recording this is my youngest son's last day of preschool. And I could seriously cry just thinking about it, because I've had 3 other kids go through preschool, but there was always a knowing that there was another one that would be blessed with the opportunity, and that I would not be, it wasn't done yet. I wasn't done with those cute songs and the finger plays and the amazing artwork and the recaps at the end of the day and time on the playground together afterwards and talking with the moms and hearing all about it and the field trips and all of the amazing preschool stuff. And Jordan was really blessed that we enrolled in 2 different preschools this year. So for this year, I got to say I had 4 kids in 5 schools with 5 different schedules. I'm not sad that chaos is getting trimmed down by a little bit in the fall when I will have 4 kids at 3 schools, but it was a crazy year, and it was such a year of blessings. And his 2 preschools were very different and also very enriching and welcome in their different ways. And they really provided such a great basis for him to just be an amazing young human and to continue on that path. And I would be lying if I said I'm really excited for him to start kindergarten because this has been such an amazing year. And I just love having a preschooler. And there's parts of me that are like, oh, you should have soaked it up more when you had preschoolers all those years. You know, I've had 2 years with Jordan and 2 years with Jason. I think I might have even had more. I think we might have started him early, or one of them, either Jonah or Jason started early, and 2 years again with Jonah. And it was a little over a year with Jaden. We actually started him late because we were moving from Florida and trying to get settled and trying to figure it all out. So, but I've had, the better part of 8 years of preschool time, and God, I loved them all. Loved, loved, loved it. I have all the artwork. I've digitalized the artwork. I have so many memories and videos and pictures, and just there's been so many wonderful teachers. I think I've mentioned it before that Jordan actually got to finish one of his preschools was the same preschool where Jaden, my oldest, who just turned 17 this last weekend, began preschool. So my bookends got to start and finish my preschool era of all my kids at the same cooperative preschool. And that felt like such an aligned blessing that I was so grateful for. And I also got to find a brand new preschool, which was the second preschool that I enrolled Jordan in. That was beyond amazing, just incredible, and so different from any preschool experience I've ever had with any of my kids. And I wish I could have sent them all there had I known, we've had such great preschools though. We've been so lucky. Everyone has ended up right where they needed to be. You know what I mean? So anyway, back to school overwhelm is a real thing. I think that shifting into summer overwhelm is a real thing too. I think that when you're a work from home mom, or just a mom, honestly, whether you work out of the home, whether you don't work at all, just a mom, you have a certain routine during the school year and a certain routine during summer. And I mean, I think that's even true if you're a homeschooling mom, that things are a little different from one season to the next. So when you're a creature of habit and routine, like I identify with, although I am doing everything in my power lately to just break the habit of being me, do things differently, show up differently, break things down in different ways than I usually do my work tasks in different orders, or make dinner differently. So many ways that I am shaking things up and showing up differently. And I know that that is helping me because, they say neurons that fire together, wire together. And that really makes us get kind of addicted to our patterns and our routine. And it makes it really hard for us to manifest a different outcome and to really achieve goals that don't align with the way that we have had those neurons wiring together for so long. So by breaking those routines, those habits, just the whole being our selfness of it all, then we can create different patterns. We can create different outcomes. And I personally have found that to be a lot of fun. That does not mean that my days are void of any part of my routine. That would be a huge, big, fat lie. But I'll change it up. I'm open to it. And when I change it up and it's uncomfortable, I notice that. This morning, I decided that I'd like to go back into more of a window of eating, kind of in alignment with an intermittent fasting kind of a thing, because I wake up so early, and I wouldn't say I stay up late. I'm normally heading to bed between 9 and 10:30. But when you wake up at 4:30 in the morning, that's pretty late, and it's been a really long day. And my eating was getting stretched out through a longer period of time than I would want it to be. So this morning was the first morning that I was like, okay, so I'll just wait until 9 this morning to eat, instead of, I'm normally picking up something and feeling pretty hungry by 7 o'clock. And, at that point, I've been up for 2.5 hours. I've usually worked out, all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I have every reason to be hungry, but I was like, what if I just stretch it a little bit? And I would ultimately like to stretch it even later than that. But this morning I just made a goal of 9 o'clock, and I was very conscious of all the times that I was called to grab either my normal breakfast or to take a bite of what I was making the kids for breakfast as I got them ready for school, or that my stomach was just like, feed me, or that I was feeling a little bit hangry or irritable or whatever else. And I was like, instead of just being like, oh, forget it, I can't do this, which I feel like is what so many people do. I've really gotten quite good at just being in the mindset of, well, that's interesting. I can wait. What's happening here? Well, that's fascinating. I'm really curious about that. Brain, what are you trying to tell me? Body, what are you trying to tell me? How can we make this work? And it wasn't difficult. I made it to 9 o'clock, and I ate kind of what I normally do at 7. So it's pushed back a little bit. And I don't feel like it's as difficult for me to turn things off at like 7 p.m. because I don't normally eat much after that. And if I do, it's really nothing of much value. So not eating it, I don't think will be difficult, other than from a craving standpoint. But you guys know I've got that down with EFT, like the EFT cravings, even the stuff that happened this morning, being conscious about it and then tapping on it a bit, it was not a problem to wait. So fun stuff to explore. I mean, I haven't applied my EFT practice much to intermittent fasting and what comes up when one does that. I have applied it to weight loss and body image and all sorts of other things. And I always find that fun and fascinating. And I've definitely applied it to food cravings, super duper effective. So I just tweak things a little bit. When you have a modality that can literally be used for anything that you can feel, it's pretty cool to actually use it and to get the results when and where you want and desire them. So anyway, I had my first guest on the show a few months after we get started. And it was very important to me that that first guest was Megan Eggleston, because there was so much of a link between my discovery of EFT and her, and also my personal development and the time that I spent in network marketing, of which I'm still affiliated. I'm just it's become an awesome form of passive income for me. So I'm grateful for the time that I really invested, hustling with that business and doing that. I'm also grateful for the lessons that it taught me, that I actually don't have to hustle and grind and all that kind of stuff that felt like the culture, for me at the time. And I can do what I love and what feels totally aligned all the time. But I learned so many tools through that time. So again, nothing but gratitude. And so I had her on as my first guest, and that was really aligned for me and felt amazing. And that was right after an episode I had done about procrastination versus prioritization. And it wasn't much longer after that I had a friend of mine, Jenna Reese, on, and we did a lot of interesting talk around breath work and healing, which I loved. I have an affinity towards the value of breath work. And I feel like it's one of those things like emotional freedom techniques that sometimes people discount the power of, because it's like, oh, I'm just breathing anyway. Like I do that every day. Nothing's changing. And they just don't realize how manipulation of that and consciousness directed at that can completely change the outcome of what happens when you breathe in certain ways, and with heightened awareness. So I loved talking to Jenna, and I also loved talking about we just started doing a lot more talk in the fall about the shift from being overwhelmed to being empowered, and a lot more shows that were really talking about living in that state of empowerment and becoming that mompreneur for all my mamas that are working their own businesses at home that you want to be, and having that inner peace and that joy and that calm that, I don't know about you guys, but for me, there were years that I was just like, it's just crap. Like nobody has inner peace. Like it's not possible. It doesn't exist. I feel anxiety all the time. I'm not sleeping well. And I don't understand how people can be all zen and peaceful and feel good all the time, because I don't. And that was life for a period of time. And it was apparently what I needed to kick my butt into gear and realize that it is possible, more than possible, not honestly that freaking difficult. And that there was a shift that I needed to make. And when I was ready, I shifted. And I'm so glad that I was able to be open to that and not stay in my closed off space of it not being possible or not for me or whatever else. I just, when you try something and it works and it feels good, you go back for more. Okay. It's just that the problem in our culture is that that's usually chocolate or sugar or some other vice that isn't good for you also. Sure, might feel good at the time for a little bit, but that feel good doesn't last. It turns into more of that stress and anxiety and stress hormones and cortisol, and it turns into the bad feelings. It's disguised for a brief moment, but it's deceptive. So and that was, gosh, we're into like November at this point in the journey. And at that point for me is when I started to do a lot more guest appearances on podcasts. I had probably done, I don't know, about a half dozen up until that point, and they were very varied, very different shows with different topics. And when I started doing a lot more in November, it was like I started feeling like I was aligned so much with the hosts that I was connecting with and really starting to produce some amazing results. Now, like I said before, it's like some of the early guest appearances, I'm like, oh, goodness gracious. Like I either was very robust in talking and was afraid that if I let the host talk, I was like never going to get to speak again or something. I'm not really sure what was going on there, but some of them I was like, very headstrong. And I've learned to have better conversations, live and learn, I'm not proud of what I was doing at the time, but I can see so much of a difference having just done it for a little while. I typically guest now on 6 to 12 shows a month. So I'm doing a lot, and it must not be coming off that bad because I keep getting invited onto more. So, but we're always our own worst critic. And that is part of me cultivating that nurturing, loving, understanding side of my heart chakra, and being able to encourage myself through that the same way that I would as a friend. No wonder you don't feel like that was the perfect interview. It's the first time you did it. And how amazing of you for getting out there and being confident enough to talk about what you're passionate about without having done it before, and knowing that it's scary, and knowing that you're not really sure what you're going to be asked or whatever else. And you still showed up and you nailed it and you did an amazing job. And I had a great time listening to that. So good job. Being able to pat yourself on the back that way. And so often our inner critic is just, oh, well, you could have been more prepared. You probably should have done more to get ready for that. And maybe if you'd connected more with the host beforehand, you would have known what they were going to ask. And then you could have, had the perfect answer already ready, but you didn't do that. I've not done that to myself once, even in interviews where I was like, ooh, wow, I could have done better. I go into interviews and my own podcast recordings with a high energy kind of mentality, that if I'm showing up with aligned energy, that I am here to give you guys the best of what I have to offer, that I'm here to have a great conversation when I'm on somebody's show, and that I have zero expectations connected to any specific outcome, magic happens every single time. If I go in there and I'm like, oh, but I really hope they ask me about this, and I hope I have a chance to talk about that. And when I do, there's this sentence that I really want to say in a specific way because it nails the point better than any other way that I could say it. So maybe I'll have a note card here and I'll have it so that it reminds me, but I don't want to appear or sound like I'm reading off the note card. So I'll just practice it a few times beforehand, but I still might get it wrong. It can get so complicated. And it's like, people just want you. Do you guys honestly care if I've said, or if I repeat myself, or if I start a sentence and then I go, oh, no, I mean to say, and say the right thing, or if I say the wrong word and then I correct myself or whatever, like that's me. I don't nail it all the time. But when my heart's in the right place and my energy is in the right place, all is well. You're going to get something great from me. I'm going to have something great to give because I'm full of love and ideas and things to share that I know are helpful to people. And I'm just going to keep sharing them. So that's what I did throughout fall and winter of last year as I began being a guest more often. And that's also when I started to talk more about something that I'm really passionate about, but hadn't shared a ton about. And that's the way that the chakra system aligns with our challenges and also our desired outcomes, and how clearing that energy and using emotional freedom techniques and other things to do that can really help us get better results even faster. So I did a whole episode. It was episode 25, the manifestation channel, from idea to reality through the chakra system. That was probably one of the most popular episodes all year. And where I really introduced that idea and what that means to me and the people that I work with and how that shows up when you apply it to your own issues. And I also shared a lot about what I felt people needed to know before they hire someone, because I know I can't work with everyone. There's just one of me, and there's a lot of people who want the kind of help that I give. But when you're looking for a practitioner or a coach or an energy strategist of some sort to work with, then there's a certain way that you might want to go about that, and certain questions you might want to ask, and things you might want to recognize. And so I shared a lot about that in episode 26. And do know that at this time I do have breakthrough sessions available. And if you are looking to work together, I do have some space. So don't hesitate. If you've been listening and you're like, I think this would be a great fit for me, let's talk about it. That's the whole idea, in addition to the breakthrough session, providing you with insights of where and how to apply EFT to your life, where to start, what the big issues might be from my perspective and what you share with me during that call. It's also an opportunity to determine, do I want to take this relationship further and actually do some private work together, or get into a group coaching situation or what have you? And it's never a pressuresome situation. So come do a breakthrough session and we get to know each other better. I love spending time with new people. I love hearing about people's challenges, and it always inspires me with more ways to help solve them, which shows up in my podcast episodes, which shows up in tapping videos that I create, which shows up in all sorts of things that then are available to you, whether or not you ever decide to work with me privately. So it's a good for all kind of a situation, and something that I highly recommend whenever it is available. It does go on waitlist from time to time, but when I have them available, reach out, shoot me a message, ask me if I have breakthrough sessions available. If I do, I will hook you up and get you on my calendar. So that kind of took us through the end of December. And then, of course, it was end of the year. And much like this 1-year anniversary, I took some time to reflect on what the last 6 months had put out there. And then as we got into January, we talked about how your past affects your present and what to do about it. Because, our past, when we have not resolved something, we carry that around in our present moment energy, and it depletes us like draining a battery. And EFT has been one of the most effective ways that I have found to be able to call back my energy, to be able to bring it all here with me in the present moment, and not have these kind of cords leaking energy to past events, bothersome memories, traumas, what have you, that simply need a better resolution in order for me to reclaim my energy and have my energy in the only place I can actually use it, which is right here, right now. I can't go back. I can't change anything. I can't rearrange the past or even have a different outcome to any of those things that might still have a little bit of a twinge or a bother to them. But I can resolve that. And in doing that, I get to have all my energy here and now. Worth it, 100% every time. So we talked about that. And then I had another guest join me in January, Kelsey Aida. And love Kelsey. She's got some great books that you can get your hands on too. Letters to the Universe is one of my favorites, which has all these like worksheet pages in it that you can use to work on your own manifesting. And she has a few others out there too. If you just look her up, then you can find a lot of great offerings from Kelsey. And we had an awesome conversation about the release of that book. And she's got a great mind and a lot of wisdom to offer around the manifestation process and really making it tangible for people, which I think is sometimes the problem. And then I had Lindsay Robinson on. And Lindsay is a hypnotist and also totally fascinating in the work that she does and how she got into it and everything else. I highly recommend checking her out, and she puts a lot of amazing information out there that can really shed some light on understanding of hypnosis. I know that for me, and I've probably shared about this also, hypnosis has always been something that I have enjoyed doing, self-guided hypnosis, self-hypnosis, and I have implemented that for years. And usually, like when I lay down in the afternoon, I will do some hypnosis. I have a therapist who does hypnosis, and I love working with it. I think that the more that we can feed into our subconscious mind, that helps us make breakthroughs, helps us do more of what we want to do, helps us do less of what we don't want to do, the better and faster that we can achieve it. And I think it works beautifully hand in hand with EFT. I'm a certified hypnotic communicator and I weave it into what I do too. So hypnosis has a ton of value. And Lindsay shared a lot about that. And, as we got more into this year, we talked about turning knowledge into action, which is important because knowledge for the sake of knowledge doesn't really do us any good as far as results or differences in our life. I talked about how EFT tapping is your ultimate friend with benefits. That is a episode I really recommend listening to. That was episode 37. And nope, that was actually episode 36, sorry. And there's so many benefits that you don't even think of with EFT. Like, sure, you can use it to resolve a certain thing, but even while you're just resolving that certain thing, other things are changing in your body and mind at that same time for the better. It's such a powerful practice, guys. Like if you haven't listened or learned about EFT yet from any of my episodes, dive in. It'll blow your freaking mind. It's so powerful and has so many benefits, so many. And then we talked about stealth expectations. That was in February also. And I had really gotten back into thinking about things like that as I read through Brene Brown's newest book, and it inspired a lot in me and also a lot of parallels that were going on in my life. And I shared, vulnerably about that in that episode. And in March, I realized that I probably hadn't shared enough about my own anxiety and my own challenges at that point, as far as the specifics of my anxiety. And I started to share about high functioning anxiety, which is how I've related my anxiety. That's just kind of how mine has always felt like it showed up, that high functioning type. And it's propelled and helped me with a lot of things over the years. But I can also see that I probably could have done all of those things with a lot more joy and a lot more of that compassionate side of the heart chakra that I talked about earlier, if I had been able to resolve those feelings of anxiety then. So sure, it did what it needed to do. I now release it. And anxiety for me is not something that is completely removed, but I really don't experience a lot of it anymore. I can really calm myself around most things pretty quickly at this point. And I recognize it so much faster now that I can nip it in the bud and not let it snowball into a big ordeal. So if you relate to feelings of anxiety, whether they're high functioning or not, I highly recommend just checking that out, because I go over a lot of points in that, a lot of symptoms and things where maybe you don't even realize you have anxiety, and then you'll listen to that and you'll be like, oh, so that's what that is. Okay. And it might be a light bulb moment episode for you. And then, gosh, we got into talking about our travels this spring, our trip to the Dominican, and all of the passport issues that we had leading up to it. All full of lessons. Again, like my family vacation last summer, this vacation had a lot of lessons, a lot of opportunities, a lot of growth, a lot of manifesting, a lot of collaborating with the universe, and a lot of amazingness. It was an amazing vacation, and all is well, and all was well, and everything worked out, and it was fabulous. So I did share a lot about that because I think that people have similar situations all the time. And, it may not be a passport issue and a trip to the Dominican, but complications and things, little wrenches get thrown in the plans for us all the time. And the episodes about that, I think it was episode 39, Passports and Panic. And then I did a part 2 on episode 43. So one was before getting the passports and one was after. And it also included information about the actual vacation and everything else. There was a lot of aha moments, a lot. And Episode 40, I spent time just, sharing book recommendations, things that I've been into, and also just learning and prosperity based information in that one too. I had a lot to share in that. And if you're looking for a new read or listen, in my case, I listen to everything. Everything's got to be on Audible or some other audio book app for me to consume it. And there's a lot of good recommendations on there. And later in the month on episode 41, I went back and I shared a lot of the things that I went through and learned when we bought the house that we're living in right now, because that was full of so many lessons. And I tell you what, if you're buying a house, if you're selling a house, if you're going through that whole thing right now, sure, it's amazing. It's a blessing. It's usually absolutely wonderful and welcome. Sometimes it's not, but it's a lot. There's emotional stuff in there. There is all sorts of limiting beliefs that can pop up. And I personally feel like everyone should have an EFT practitioner to consult with when they are going through selling and buying a home. That includes real estate agents too, I must say, because they've got all of that going on all the time with all of their different clients and everything else. And there's a psychology to all that stuff and some definite room for major growth and major transformation when you sell and or buy a home. So I recommend that one. Now, heading into March, I had Melissa Chiro come on as a guest, and I loved talking with her. She's also been a client of mine, and she's an amazing life coach and lawyer, and she has some awesome, awesome stuff to share around what we commonly know as imposterism or imposter syndrome, but she refers to as unwarranted self-doubts. And we had some great conversation and some good laughs, and that's another really awesome episode. I talked about career and passion and purpose with Deborah Vole, who is also the host of Calm the Chaos, which is a great show. And we had an awesome conversation on episode 44 in April. And I I had this awesome opportunity and experience to be a mentor on my son's robotics team for First Robotics this spring. He was on the team all year, but this spring is when they got into all of the different division and regional and eventually world championships. And when they went to Worlds in Texas, I knew I wanted to go. I knew I wanted to be part of that. And there was a lot wrapped up in that. A lot. And I broke it down in a couple of episodes this past spring. So episode 45, when you're faced with complicated decisions, self-coaching manifestation and robots, that episode is where I kind of opened up and talked a bit about it. And then episode 46 was how to bring clarity, consciousness, and change with your biggest challenges. Touched on it also. And episode 47, fortune cookies, perfectly aligned and right on time, went into a lot of the nuances of that too. So I would almost consider that like a series of 3 also, even though they're each standalone episodes, because they build on each other and expose a lot of lessons and a lot of aha moments. And I loved episode 47. I loved the way that I kind of got in my own way, but more so than that, the way that I noticed I was getting in my way and things resolved so quickly versus what might have happened with the me of 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever. And there's so much that you get to pat yourself on the back, guys, when you start getting more conscious about your behaviors and what you're producing with them. It's fun. It's really fun. So I really recommend that. And, if you have teenagers, if you have kids, just check it out, because it was an amazing opportunity. But the way that we are desired to take part in things as a parent, or not desired to take part in things as a parent, as our kids grow, can really bring up a lot of emotions. not just for us, but for our kids. And I go into a lot of that in a vulnerable way. And I think it'll probably bless and help a lot of people. So that's kind of where things were in May. And then I had another amazing guest on. I had Laquita Monley on in May, and she shared about the power of intentional growth, spirituality, and unlearning. And man, we had an amazing conversation about her life and all of the different decisions and turning points and so forth, and how she's gotten to where she is today. And I really enjoyed that conversation. I really did. And after that, I shared, and this was another vulnerable one for me. The episode 49 was called "What Happens When You Do Nothing," and I got into like how it feels to actually rest or do nothing, and how uncomfortable, like just really, really uncomfortable that was for me for a very long time, and how I've only just begun to embrace it in the last few years and see the value. And I talked about the value, and I talked about how to start doing it if you are like I was, or even if you're just starting to grow with the idea of rest being productive and rest being as valuable as doing stuff, doing things, doing work, or the worst of the worst, being busy. Oh, guys, let's not be busy. Don't be busy. Be intentional. So that's what was going down in episode 49. And then episode 50, we're getting so close to where we are right now. Episode 50, I got to talk with Nikita Ren Thigpen. She's awesome, guys. Like, I mean, I say it in her intro and everything else, but I love her. She is just such an amazing relationship coach and advisor. She's big into balance. Her podcast is Balance Boldly. And with all my guests, their information or their podcasts or whatever are in the show notes for their episodes. Definitely check them all out. If I had them on my show, there's a reason, and I respect them. And I think that what they have to offer to the world is important. And that is definitely also the case with Nikita. And I got to tell you, I've been on her show. I've done other live engagements with her. We've had a few, virtual coffee chats together. I've never actually met her in person, but I have plans to before the end of the year, actually. And I'm excited about that. But I felt like we'd had a good amount of conversations, and she blew my mind with the things that she had been through in the younger years of her life. And I couldn't believe they hadn't come up previously in our conversations, because there's such a basis for who she is and what she does, and have really formed and shaped her into the amazing woman that she is today, and equipped her with wonderful tools to help other people as she's helped herself. So definitely worth a listen. And that was all about, redefining selfishness and what a good thing it really is, and cultivating intimacy and peace within relationships. That was episode 50. And then last week, I had another guest, Megan Swan of Megan Swan Wellness. And we also had an interview that kind of went all over the place and really explored some interesting corners of her life, from when she went on her eat, pray, love journey and never made it past the first stop. She's continued to explore, but it got a little sidetracked by love. And also, what I found to be very relevant right now is all of the mommy wine culture stuff and her journey to chosen sobriety, and just the way that that's kind of showing up in our culture and society so much right now, and what it might mean to you. There's a lot of people out there that are choosing to kind of toy around with the idea of sobriety, maybe for 30, 60, 90 days. Some people are just choosing to not drink again. And it doesn't seem to matter whether the person feels like they have a problem or not. It's seeming more and more like people are realizing that it is making them get in their way more. And it's not providing any kind of wonderful addition to their life. And there's so many ways that alcohol can negatively affect lives. And I think it's nice to see a consciousness developing around that. And I don't care whether people, want to have a glass of wine or want to be curious about trying sobriety. But I do care that people want to explore what they feel is best for them. And this is just one way that people can play around with that. And I think that's so cool. So we had a great conversation. And then it's like, here I am. Here I am right now, recapping a year and feeling so grateful about all of the amazing people that I've had a chance to speak to and to, get to know, all the new friends that I've made through the process of podcasting, and all that I've learned about, just the ways that I want to operate my business, the ways that I want to put myself out there, how I want to spend my time, all sorts of things. I thank you all. I thank you for listening. I thank you for sending in suggestions of what you want to hear me talk about. I thank you for your reviews. I thank you for your interest. And I thank all of my guests for coming on and being part of the Becoming More Me podcast in its first year. And I look forward to many more years of bringing you great conversation and insight and inspiration and new ways of thinking. And I hope that you'll stick around with me and we can enjoy the ride together. Thanks for listening. Thanks so much for listening. If you loved this episode, please share it with a friend or post on social media and tag me so I can personally connect and thank you. Until next time, keep taking bold and brave action steps towards becoming more of who you want to be in this world. You are capable, you are worthy, and you are enough. Keep shining your light.